let's start making our way inside. Please, ushers, can we get people to come back into the hall, please? Especially for those that are. What else? How was tea? Nice. Okay. More word. More naughty. I found out with the twist. Okay, so all the. Do we have the video ready?
How do we shape healthier lives?
Please, can we get the video playing?
And healthier environments. In this panel session, we're bringing together voices that are redefining how do we shape healthier lives, healthier behaviors, and healthier environments. In this panel session, we're bringing together how do we shape healthier lives, healthier behaviors, and healthier environments. In this How do we shape healthier lives, healthier behaviors, and healthier environments? In this panel session, we're bringing together voices that are redefining the future of health policy. In this discussion, experts will share real, actionable steps to build communities that thrive, policies that protect, and habits that enable us to live better. Enjoy this session.
us today. And I'm curious. You can just maybe raise your hand or something. Is there anyone that stands out to us? Prices of insulin, yeah? Any other one? Oh, the projected rates of gynecological cancers. That's a big one too. Any other ones? The rates of diabetes, okay? Any others? Life expectancy, okay? Maternal mortality, I heard that. Any other? So I noticed we're calling diseases, right? Because a lot of the time, that's what we focus on. But disease only happens after something. And that something is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how do we shape environments, behaviors, and things around us in a way that helps us live healthy. I know for a long time we have, gotten the impression that everything we do affects our health. Yes, it's true. So please do good things for your health. But there are other things beyond what you do that influences health as well. And that's why in shaping healthier lives, we're not just going to be talking about behaviors, but we're going to be talking about what drives those behaviors. And we would go on to talk about policies and the interventions that affect these behaviors. We will also talk about our environment. So many of us might not know this, but just the air you're breathing right now can determine, to some extent, whether you might have a heart attack in a few years. And that's something you cannot even control. So beyond behaviors, we want to talk about all the things, all the factors that might drive how we live and the kinds of things that we do so that the quality of life, as we have heard today, can not just improve, but also the length of our lives in Africa can improve to the extent that we can say, okay, yeah, we're living not just longer lives, but we're living long enough to make Africa better, right? Who's with me? Okay, we're all with me. So today, to have this discussion, I'm going to be calling on a few people who have a lot of experience on this. One of them today is the director of Follow Taxes. His name is, we'll be welcoming him up to the stage now. So Khalifa Haliru is the director of Follow Taxes, and he has been at the forefront of talking about financing for some of the interventions that we're going to be talking about today. How do we fund these interventions, and how do we ensure that they are sustainable? Another person that will talk to us today or join in this discussion is Abby Bego. She'll be joining us virtually today. And is Abby Bego there? Is she online now? Okay. Yeah, so she's the founder of Lake Health and Wellbeing, and she's going to be talking to us about how behaviors shape healthy lives. In addition to that, we'll be welcoming Niyi. Is Niyi here?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a behavioral economist at the Policy Innovation Center. And as the name implies, he would also be, championing how behavioral interventions and policies can affect how it shapes our healthy lives. Professor Lumu is another person who will be joining us today. He's the president of the Uganda Diabetes Association. And we've heard a lot about diabetes today, the numbers, the rising trends, the prices of insulin. And he will be joining us on the conversation around behaviors and policy, because there is a lot of that influences how diabetes starts and how it is managed. So we're going to be starting as soon as all the panelists join in. Is Abby online here? Okay. All right. So the first question that I have today is for Mr. Iniya Adekunla. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, has Abby joined now? Okay, hi Abby. Thanks for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. I don't think my mic is working, but good morning, everyone. It's good to be here.
Yeah, okay. It's nice of you to join us. All right. So we're going to be speaking first to Mr. Iniya Adekunla because although we've heard so many numbers today, one of the numbers that some of us might not know about is that of alcohol. I don't know if you know this, but the number 500 billion naira is the amount that was spent on alcohol by Nigerians in the year 2023, just half of the year, not even the whole year. I don't know what that amount would do, but it would do a lot for us in health, for our roads, and so many more. So what we really want to talk about today in terms of alcohol is what is driving this behavior and what are the interventions that we can, commit to that can reduce the consumption of alcohol.
All right, thank you so much. To start with, like she's mentioned, my name is Iniya Adekunla. I am a senior behavioral economist within the Policy Innovation Center. So that's a very fantastic question, and I must admit the fact that say whether we like it or not, anything that can, from the statistics you mentioned, anything that can take a whopping 500 billion naira from the pockets of Nigerians in the half of a year, it's not something we can gloss over it with. And more importantly, it's a behavior, and most especially the behavior is fast influenced by so many factors, as you mentioned. And of course, critical to any behavior is the fact that we have to recognize the different pockets of issues, including the cognition or psychological orientation to it, what informs you, why am I behaving the way I'm behaving. The next is about the fact that the environment you find yourself, who are the people you see, and specifically or technically they call it the choice architecture around you. And lastly, the behavior is also shaped by the system or structure you find yourself. So what are the regulatory framework or the ecosystem of regulation, governance that supports or enable the behavior in question? So let me quickly zoom in on some of these specific factors more critically. Number one, I'm going to speak to the cognitive biases. And like I mentioned, cognition or psychology is simply summed up in the way people see or perceive themselves and their environments, the lens at which you see your environment. And when it comes to adopt a behavior like alcohol intake, most especially or specific to excessive intake of alcohol, you will agree with me that more often than not, an average person that gets out of the episode experience of alcohol, and for example, you have found yourself doing all sorts of stuff, and when you wake up and you realize yourself after the hangover, you just feel like, what has just happened to me? It shows the fact that, and that will not stop you from taking up another bottle. Now the question is, what happens? One of the critical things around here is what we call attentional bias. What attentional bias does is that you see the people at the other end of the supply chain, they have a way of influencing behaviors of alcohol takers. And what do? Is that they ensure that environment where people are together. You see, in this part of Africa, we are more often than not governed by social influence. We are communal in nature, and more often than not, when it comes to stress relief, we tend to enjoy the circle of our friends and family more than any other thing. And that's why you see that an average youth will prefer to go out of the house and go and watch football in a viewing center. Do you agree with me? And that is how it is. And by the time you get to viewing center, you will agree with me also that some of the adverts you see, the moment you are in the halftime to the second half, you will see legal beer. They are creating an environment. They are igniting an experience and an attention. And so, more often than not, if you are already a hard drinker already, as at that time, everything in your cognition is already speaking to the fact that you are going to relapse. There is a high tendency because, number one, they are enablers. The first thing is the fact that you got an heart is already, you have some bartenders that will take care of you right there and there. And one of the highest form of behavioral misnomer is at a point where you can afford your own behavioral misnomer, meaning that you have the money to take care of yet another one bottle. What you will tell yourself at that point is that everything in the environment has ignited your cognition and you want to take one more bottle. And typically you will agree with me that every other alcohol taker out there is that the normal cliche is that one bottle cannot kill. It's just one, maybe extra two. So people will tell you that if I take 10 right now and here, nothing will happen to me. So that is first thing. There's a conditionality, and the moment there is a cognitive stimuli, you will respond. The next thing that is also very similar to it is one thing is the fact that it's approach bias, and that is within you. Don't forget, I've been talking about everything that has to do with your psychology. Attentional bias, approach bias. That one is just saying that at any point in time, an average person will respond internally to what you want to do by your environment, which is very similar to attentional bias. What you are saying is that if you find yourself in an environment that enables a particular behavior over and over again, there is a very high likelihood that you are going to do it. And if you look at historically, where we find ourselves when it comes to alcohol consumption, don't forget we are talking about excessive consumption, is the fact that there is a social legitimacy. People just believe the fact that you are not a big boy until you have been able to take one more bottle. Do you agree with me? Don't look at me and say that. What is this one saying now? Are we together here? So there's a social legitimacy that we have given this social behavior. Don't forget that when historically, even pre-colonial era, one of the things that has been bringing people together has been the fact that even without the issues, labels like legal beer, mention names, any form of beer or alcohol beverages, you will discover that people still go back to palm wine. People still do brukutu. If you know anything about that, don't worry. I know I'm with some Gen Zs and all of that. But what I'm seeing in essence is that everything that can spike or reduce stress, people want to be a part of it. Yeah. Anything that can make you feel comfortable, people want to be part of it. Anything that can make you to be socially accepted, people want to be part of it. So the question is not yet another, can we eradicate alcohol consumption? It's about the fact that can we leverage the social influence or the social proofing effect, or can we leverage the existence reality that we find ourselves? Because you see, we can't find against the market. Any market, for example, Statista.com says last year that there was a projection that the alcohol beverage industry is taking nothing less than $2.19 billion.
And I know you also talked about kinds of policies that would be important to this. We'll come back to this. I just want us to go on to some of the other things that are involved in Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So there are some other things that are in our environment that also relate to how we behave and how we behave around what we consume and how it shapes our lives. To do that, I would speak with Abby. I thought she was here just now. Where's Abby?
I'm still here. Yes.
Okay. All right. I wanted you to talk about unprocessed food and how we can make that the norm, right? I know that we already understand how much ultra-processed foods, affect our lives. For those of us who might not have, some knowledge around this, we just mean food that has been stripped of, a lot of its nutritional values. And these foods are usually fast foods or, some junk that we find in a lot of supermarkets. And I know we often get those things when we're hungry because they are the closest. But it would be good to know how we can make that shift to make it easier for people to not just obtain these things, but also, have them in their homes and eat them. So Abby, would you be happy to help us to, talk about this?
Sure. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you to be for the opportunity to be on this panel. So in terms of making healthier foods the norm and trying to steer away from unprocessed foods, it really does require a whole of society approach where we have projects that are policies and legislation that are rooted in creating a healthy food environment. So I think what we need to think about is how can we get back to our cultural heritage of eating real, nutritious food. And we can position these foods really as, like we have said before, modern, aspirational, beneficial for us. So we can position these in a way that's appetizing so that we can think of these as being the norm. And some ways that we can do that is really starting at the beginning, and that's with education. And so we need to continue the education with the public about the harms of ultra-processed foods. What are ultra-processed foods? We just described them. We need to link the ultra-processed foods to the data surrounding NCDs. How do they cause NCDs? What is the extent of their detriment to our health? In our country, NCDs are attributed to about 80% of deaths. That's a stark reality. And if we could understand that NCDs are diet-related, and driven by a lot of these ultra-processed foods, we can start to change that narrative and ensure that people are eating healthier. I mean, if we understand that 30% of deaths worldwide are caused by alcohol, tobacco, fossil fuels, and ultra-processed foods, I think that starts to create an appetite for people to shift their behaviors. And we also need to provide alternatives. What are the healthier alternatives for people to transition to? We need to build healthier communities, and the only way we can do is by having healthier people. And so we want people to shift to eating healthier foods, and we can do that by encouraging people, showing the data, educating people. And we also need those powerful story-driven campaigns that can help shift our mindsets and attitudes. The other thing that we need is to start promoting businesses and supporting health. So we need to build and incentivize industries that promote health. So we support all those entrepreneurs that are producing creative, affordable, and appealing local food. And to make those trendy, we need to use all the marketing tactics that we use. We need to use that to promote healthy foods, and so that we can make healthy foods friendly and appealing to our young people. But we need, most importantly, we do need the political will. We need government action. We need all the policies, the healthy food policies, that are going to really shift our behavior and make it a healthy choice the easiest choice. We need governments to enforce policies. We know a range of policies which you can come back to that have been recommended by the World Health Organization to create a healthy environment, and to put our governments to introduce those policies. And in terms of policies, we know that there is a lot of pushback, but governments need to be strong and take action. They need to be free of conflict of interest, and they need to have the courage to prioritize the public's health over profit. So those are just the things we can do to make healthy foods sustainable. We need to do the education of public awareness. We need to support and promote health promoting businesses, and we need government action with policy.
Thank you so much, Abby. It's good to hear that there are so many levels to ensuring prevention and in ensuring that we eat healthier foods. And it's good you mentioned that at the individual level, all of us here can be part of the awareness, and we can be part of those who share facts and not myths. We can be part of those who ensure that if you were an influencer, for example, you don't promote certain brands that would people that you might be talking to or who might be in your audience.
you know, the impact of the political environment and industries that also have the power to change, you know, the foods that we eat. I know at the beginning of this summit, we heard the Cerelac content in Africa versus another continent, you know, Europe. How was that done? How did they ensure, you know, that it was implemented, removing sugars from, you know, baby milks and baby supplements? Imagine that at an age when you cannot even decide for yourself, you're already being given something that contains such high amounts of sugars. There is no awareness that could curb that, but you know, the political levels can help to ensure that there are policies around food, and for us too, for those of us who are innovators in the space, we can champion this as well to ensure that there are healthier foods on the shelves for people to buy. Yeah, so we'll go on to the next question quickly. We know that at the beginning of this, I mentioned the air we breathe could sometimes also affect, you know, how our health is. And one of the things that really shocks me is the fact that Nigeria has 2.5 times above the normal, you know, air pollution levels. So just being in a country could literally just change the trajectory of how a person's health is. It's sad because you can't change that on your own, and we want to think around what things or what commitments can be made to ensure that people are safer, especially for things that they cannot control, like air pollution. So I'll be calling on Khalifa to speak around that. What really is the state of, you know, health air pollution in Nigeria at the moment, and what ways can we think around addressing this?
Hello. All right. Yes. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm Halil Ahmad Khalifa. I'm the lead director of food. Okay. So, talking about all of this, right? We cannot take out our monetary policies and how some of these key policies behaves around us, around everything that happens across board. If it's health, if it's whatever issue we have in general. And again, we also need to start intentionally to start to look at local-led solutions that have been thriving in some of these communities that reduces some of these key issues, especially now that you talk about health pollution. There are eco-friendly stoves now that are available. There's this one of these interventions we're making in some communities. There's a research that we made around this that have shown that when you use some of these eco-friendly stoves, for instance, if you have in a year, if you're supposed to use 10 trees for any household, with those eco-friendly stoves, the numbers would reduce to maybe 2 to 3 trees, for instance, right? So, and you get to see that for 2,000 households, for instance, they cut down 10 trees every year. You could see the numbers of some of these, the implications in terms of the air we breathe. And it still also go down to where do our monetary policies, where do our budgeting for the whole year, where do they look at beyond federal? I'm talking about subnational. I'm even going down to talk about even local governments. Where do some of these interventions look at? Because you cannot even take out the implications of where our budgets, the focus of our budgeting and implementations of those budgeting, where they look at, you cannot take it out from the implications of everything that happens around us, including the air we breathe. Because if for some reason our budgeting process is cognizant of our environment and our climatic factors, especially regarding the air we breathe. Intentionally, in those budgeting process, there are going to be integrations of projects in local communities that would intentionally reduce these numbers. And that is why it's very important from the top, we should understand how for everything we budget for every monetary policies, now we're talking a lot, there's a lot issues, conversations around the new tax policies, right, that is coming up in Nigeria. So all of these policies, especially policies that speaks to our monetary policies, they have strong implications to everything that happens to our lives and how our lives transit, especially at the local level. And it's very important that as, especially for government actors that make most of these policies, and as advocates that will keep advocating for some of these policies, we start to put cognizance to where our budgeting lies, because at the end of the day, these are the key things that translate to better lives. And again, in those communities, how do we intentionally create local-led solutions that are adaptable, that are easily adaptable in those communities? You'll be surprised that already based in those local communities, all they need is amplifications. How do we key into
Abby had mentioned how we can leverage various levels, both at individual and communities, and even for innovators, and up to the level of governance. And I just want to know, beyond awareness, are there specific levers that we can use, especially in Africa, to make health acceptable generally or socially? When Nii was talking about how people gather and that often promotes certain behaviors, I wanted to ask if he was saying we shouldn't attend Owambears anymore or something. But another thing that we do a lot at Owambears is we eat different kinds of foods, and that is a way we come together. And so I'm really interested in us discussing alternatives, but also, policies that might help to reshape how we think about what we serve, both at our events or what we even accept at events. Did you hear me?
Sorry, I am not there clearly. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was asking Professor Lumu to build a bit on the food systems that we were talking about just now, and how we can have other levers that are beyond awareness to ensure that our foods are healthy in social situations. I don't think he heard us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Okay. I don't think he can hear us
Hello?
right now. IT, can you help us just, can you help us attend to him? Abby, if you heard the question, I'm okay with you.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Samia Fatham, a friend of mine from IDF's group Diabetes, who linked me to Get Field Health Summit 2025 organizers. I'm sorry, I'm deep in the village from Kampala. That's about 500 miles from Kampala. So my network keeps on jumping, but I'll try to contribute. I've listened very attentively to what has been discussed and has been very great, right from mental health to alcohol consumption to processed foods. So the question was how to make, unprocessed foods acceptable in our society. So like you all discussed, this is a multi-pronged approach. We have to, one, we need a comprehensive approach looking at the convenience of the food, of the unprocessed foods, looking at affordability, not forgetting the cultural perspectives. Right from food growing to harvesting, cooking, or processing and eating, there are cultural aspects involved, and we can't list this one out. Then also have to think of structural changes to the food system. People have discussed policy interventions early, but also the community initiatives that can be taken to make sure that food is acceptable. We need to start thinking of things like community agriculture. We need to start thinking of things like urban farming. To set policies that's going to allow that one for people to grow crops on their verandas, on their rooftops, things like that. We also have to emphasize consumer education. Now we are dealing with Gen Zs who think that probably eating unprocessed foods is local. They really want what is appealing and to them. And to make matters worse, even when they make advertisements about unprocessed foods, the messages there and the pictures there are not appealing to them. Now here comes an advert from one of these food companies. Someone is having iPhone 17, some nice headphones, things like that, highlighting from a sophisticated car. And when it comes to the unprocessed foods, somebody sees a farm, a huge cow here and there. So we need to start thinking of ways how to make these messages that promote unprocessed foods palatable to the consumers or our people. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that we need to emphasize, I'm very sure some people could have talked about it. These are the fiscal policies in terms of taxes, in terms of subsidies. We need to start looking at taxes that are going also to tax commodities that promote agro-processed foods, things like soy, things from sugar, and many other things, so that the subsidies, kind of the savings we make from these, we make unprocessed foods production better, easier, and more affordable. Then there are other things that we also need to look at is the dietary guidelines. We need to start looking at good dietary guidelines in schools, in hospitals, and on government-owned institutions. We need to start developing policies that actually champion the consumption of unprocessed foods. And one way of doing it is government setting policies to enhance purchase of or stocking these unprocessed foods over ultra-processed foods. So it's not doing, just adding on to what Abby could have described, to what can be done to improve or make consumption of unprocessed foods acceptable to our society.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Professor Lumu. It's good that we heard that perspective, but I'm sure in some of our minds we're thinking, how do I even purchase, the healthy foods? How do I purchase vegetables and fruits and, these things. People talk about price because it's a very important factor, and I'm glad that you talked about affordability, because making these foods affordable and close to people as much as possible can also change how people behave around the foods that they eat. We will now go back to Nii, who has been waiting to tell us the interventions regarding alcohol and how we can reduce consumption. But before you go on, I know one of the things that has really been a battle in Nigeria is taking off the small sachet from the shelves, because I don't know if some of us have seen that. You just see a very small bottle that can enter, your suit or your trouser pockets, or sachet that taxi drivers or bus drivers just take on the go. How do we, take this off the shelves completely? Because I know NAFDAC has been trying, and we haven't had as much success as we would have liked to. So in addition to the policies, how do we implement what we've started in terms of getting these things off?
All right, thank you so much for that question. I'm going to talk about that, but I need to quickly create a very short context around it. Of course, last year, NAFDAC attempted to ban this, and of course, immediately there was a pushback, even from our own people. I don't want to mention names so that I'll be able to live here. All right. So, and there we were over the time. The origin of this was as a result of a WHO recommendation that was WHO Safer Plan 2022 to 2030. And one of their different recommendations, about 5 different pillars, which runs through pricing, which is one of the, which I think what informed the attempt by the NAFDAC to make that proposition for banning. Now, pricing, taxation or increasing taxes on all those imported alcoholic beverages, and then in terms of density of and availability of the people that are selling it. You agree with me today that when you get to an average park, motor park today, you will see the sachet. Even if they don't have the full bottle, you will see something affordable for an average person to just take off the shelf. So, availability, they mentioned that they should reduce the density. And then, again, screening and behavioral intervention, they also mentioned that. So, bringing all of this together, the truth of the matter is that there should be a sequence. There is no one size-fit-all intervention that can curb this long-lasting social menace in our midst. And the truth of the matter is that me and you only know it by virtue of knowledge as a social menace. Some people, that is their own go-to advantage to be able to take care of family pressure, job pressure, and every other thing that looks like Nigeria. So, that said, I want to propose, I would propose an approach. I call it a phased approach to this. And this phased approach is going to be integrated. I repeat, a phased integrated approach in such a way that you don't tackle this kind of problem at a go. I heard someone mention the issue around awareness. Yes, fantastic to start with. Because one of the things that leads to behavioral change is a model we call KAB, that is knowledge, the knowledge attitude that will lead to a behavior. So when people are aware of the implication of what they are doing, at least a good part of the problem has been solved. But the truth of the matter is that, don't forget, I mentioned something around the fact that one of the key cognitive issues around what causes this issue or make it more perpetuated is the fact that people overestimate the consequence of consumption. They will just tell you, is it not just one bottle? I know of a friend in the university, back in the university, the guy was already diabetic. When I say diabetic, type 2, and everything that can call a very worst case, acute case. And the guy was telling me that I can take bottles. You see, something will kill a man. And that is one of those things. That's one of those regular narratives that we do here. So it is very important for us to begin to make this over, put this over there and say, for example,
if you notice what has happened between NAFDAC and our legislation, you will agree with me that there was a systemic issue. There is no way you want to solve a systemic problem and using an individual approach. Or you just tell people that don't go and buy sachet, let's increase the price. The truth of the matter is that an average sachet of this thing, for example, I had one of these manufacturers saying some time ago that the average cost is around 500 naira, and that he is selling his own 800 naira. Between me and you, if you are going to enter an average restaurant today and eat on average, you can't spend anything less than 2,000 naira. That means that alcohol consumption is even more affordable than healthy food. So we have to create an alternative for this, making the healthier food an healthier alternative available as much as how the so-called alcohol in sachet is available, because it's a marketing strategy.
Thank you so much that you mentioned that. So we're going to be telling people when we leave here today that we should take alcohol off the shelves and put healthy food there, right? Okay, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up after we speak with Khalifa again, because I know one of the things you really wanted to talk about is, how do we cut down on industrial emissions of, some of the things that make our air polluted. Not just indoors, I know you talked about that before, but also like outdoors, where we walk, where we live. Imagine a city like Port Harcourt having one of the highest, worst air quality index. So it means it has one of the highest air pollution levels in Nigeria. And if Nigeria already has 2.5 times a lot of countries, then it means Port Harcourt is like where you go to when you want to breathe bad air. I don't mean to say this for those of us who are from River State, but that's just what it is. Those are the facts that we have, and we don't like that it's that way. So for an NCD advocate living in Port Harcourt today, what would be the first step, or what would be something that you could tell them to do in their own environment, starting there and maybe becoming a national thing that you think might really move the needle on, air pollution in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. So I will also approach this from Ni's perspective. A lot of these issues, we cannot approach them with one-headed approach, right? You need a series of quite a number of interventions, right? For households, let's do as much as possible to keep planting trees. Let's do as much as possible to keep using friendlier ways of friendlier, eco-friendly stoves and all. But then, at the flip side is, for instance, for someone that live in one remote area in Port Harcourt, that maybe for some reason might not even have access to the gas and even the eco-friendlier stoves, then what happens to such kind of persons, right? So now this is where the government come in. I'll give an instance with Kaduna State. So there's this street, right, that I know of, from the beginning to the end of the street, maybe like a 2-kilometer street. You could see mango trees everywhere. So a government came, wanted to renovate the road, and they cut down the whole of the tree from that on the road, right? So you could also see that there's a lot of systemic issues, there's a lot of policy issues, there's a lot of ignorance to integrate some of these conversations even into our policies and even the way the government itself operates and the kind of behavior that the government itself use in terms of how they operate at that level. So what I would say that is we need to have a lot of behavioral change on how we see our environment and how we also take conversations about healthy environment seriously in terms of how we design our policies to be very, very intentional to environmental hazard, and of course in our households and communities, how to also intentionally integrate community-based interventions that encourage planting of trees, the use of eco-friendly stove, and every other conversations that has to do with more greener environment and a more safe environment. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Because of time, we would have to wrap up now. There's so much more to say around this, but one thing is we need to take action urgently. That's the one thing that is clear today. And maybe one of the things we need to also reflect around is, what are we taking action on? Are we taking action on the different aspects, that affect NCDs, or that are, factors in NCDs, or are we just all looking at one direction, right? We talked about taking alcohol off the shelves and putting healthy food there. And if we were to do this, then we might need some of you as advocates, as civil society, pressuring food industries, right? Pressuring food retailers. I know we like to talk to people in communities a lot, but let's remember that the power doesn't stop there. The power goes, far beyond just the individual, as our panelists have said today. It goes beyond that to our institutions, our governments, both local and at the national level. So when you do your work or when you talk around these, ensure that all of these are included in the conversation. Thank you so much, Khalifa, Ni, Professor Lumu, and Abby, for the wonderful conversation. I hope you all gained something from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I attended a press briefing, and one of the speakers said, eat food, let food be your medicine, so that medicine will not be your food eventually. So basically, take care of your health. And then, as Khalifa said, use eco-friendly options for your home appliances, and importantly, plant trees. It is said that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So plant trees anytime, anywhere that you can get, plant a tree. All right. So how are we doing? Are we having a nice time? Really? Okay, you know what I'm about to say. Please put it on social media. So I want to do a quick video. Let's have a selfie video. So we're going to shout GHS 2025 after the count of 3, right? Okay. So 1, 3, go. Oh no, I don't like the energy. I don't like the vibe. Better vibe, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. So take a selfie now. Share your thoughts about the session that just ended. Put it on social media. Hashtag Gatefield Health Summit. And then please tag at Gatefield Impact. So we'll quickly get into the next session, and it is going to be a fireside chat. Is the video ready? Okay. All right, so our next segment is going to be moderated by Kafayat Alawode. She was here earlier to share the research that was done on diabetes. And so please join me to welcome Kafayat Alawode, the Program Coordinator at DGI Consult Limited. A round of applause, please. We can do better than this.
Hello. Good afternoon. So I'm back again. Okay, so we've spoken about so many things today. We've spoken about the importance of family planning, cancer screening, treatment, diabetes support, subsidizing diabetes treatment. We've just heard about controlling NCDs through controlling what we eat. And we need awareness, a lot of awareness on that as well. And in all of this, there is one major driver that if it is missing, all this cannot be done. What is that? Money. So we can't do anything. We can't support cancer patients. We can't even have successful awareness if we do not have money to do all this. So that is why this segment is very, very important, and I would want us to all make it lively. So I'll be having this chat with two people who are highly experienced in this. So before we even go too far, you know, in Nigeria, we know, okay, we have all these issues, we have all this, we need money, but where are we? What is actually happening in terms of health financing in Nigeria at the moment? For some of us that have been here for a while doing this work on health financing, we have seen that, okay, in this country, the health system is financed by different segments. We have health financing by the households, which is the largest. In Nigeria, households spend like about 70%. They contribute about 70% to healthcare financing in Nigeria, which is very, very huge because we don't have a wide health insurance coverage. So households are responsible for 70%. So the other responsibility lies on the government, the state, the federal, the state, and the local government. But it's quite unfortunate that from the side of the government, we are not, the spending is quite low. The health system is very, very underfunded. For instance, the federal government, every government, whether state or federal, is expected to allocate a minimum of 15% of their budget and expenditure on health. But in the national budget, I don't think we have ever allocated up to 10%. Nigeria has never allocated up to 10% to the health sector. Then even at the state level, at least we have a few states that have recently started allocating up to 15%. But when they do, have you gone to check whether they eventually release those funds? So they will allocate up to 15%, we'll all be happy about it, but they don't release these funds. And even when they do, how much is it? By the time you convert the 15% into absolute figure, it is quite low compared to what is required. Then over the years, we had donors that have been coming around. They've been helping us. Where there are gaps, they've been filling the gaps. In fact, we have even left some vertical programs for them to fund solely. HIV, AIDS, malaria, TB, they're like their own problem. They are the ones handling those things when we have government. So now, and in the past we've been saying, okay, government, this is not sustainable, donor funding is not sustainable, but it seems it's, you know, it's AWOOF. They say AWOOF is very, as in everybody likes free things, freebies. So we thought it would continue like that, but lately the donors have started showing us the other side. Those that have not left, like Gavi has already started planning their transitioning. We have others that have already given us quit notice that after some time, after a certain year, they would stop funding us in Nigeria. And Trump came with the sledgehammer early this year and said no more funding for many health programs in Nigeria. We didn't see that coming at all. So now we are here. And we have to strategize on this. We have to plan our health financing beyond donor funding. So to discuss this with me today, I will be calling on two eminent professionals who have been in this space for a long time. So I'll be calling on Dr. Shola Dele-Olowu. She's the Director Regional Initiative for AMP Health. She's a health system strengthening expert, and she's also a leadership coach, and she has been in this space for more than a decade. She has worked in many places across Africa. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage. I hope she's here. Then we have Dr. Anthony Nwala. He's the Assistant Chief Program Quality Officer, Society for Family Health. He's representing Dr. Mokudu Idogo, the CEO of Society for Family Health. Both of them will be sharing their experience with us on how they have been coping with donor exit in this country, and also give us strategies towards shifting the health funding landscape in Nigeria so that we don't get affected by what is happening. We really need this funding shift, a shift in the funding landscape in Nigeria health sector, so that we can all survive and survive well, so that we can cater for the poor and the vulnerable among us. If you go to the grassroots, you know that they really need support, and there is nothing that can be done without money. If you have the goodwill, you have the intention, there's something we call, when we want government to do something, okay, thank you, political will. Even if you have the political will, but you don't have the money, what can you do? You will just have the will, you just wish, the intention will be good. So they are going to give us the strategies that we can use, how to scale this problem, to scale through the problem. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, Ma. Good afternoon, sir. So you're welcome to this fireside chat, and we'll try to make it as brief and interactive as possible. So for a start, I would like to just ask you, when the announcement, when this issue started happening, that donors started reducing their funding, we started seeing these transition plans here and there, and the biggest one, the Trump's order. What went through your mind? How did you feel? How did you take it? What did you think? Was it negative? Why? Some of us felt that some of our colleagues would lose their jobs. A lot of things. It's a mixed feeling. So I would like to know how exactly you felt about it, and what do you think about it? Is it a good one? What is it about? So I'll be directing this to Dr. Shola. Please share your thoughts with us on this.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kabai. I think the first thing with the exit of, at least the most recent exit of US funding, the whole global health space was in initial shock. And there was a lot of anxiety because, like you mentioned, a lot of human resources, commodities, services are funded by external funding. And that initial shock, personally for me, was not surprising, because this isn't the first time that Nigeria and a lot of African countries are usually in a situation where, when there is a global scarcity or crisis, the countries who fund will prioritize their own countries first and think of the nationalistic view, how to support themselves first before sending aid. And we've been talking about how aid is not sustainable for decades. It didn't just start now. And so I think the first thing to say is that the transition shock has given way to opportunity, and innovation is usually born out of crisis. We've seen countries where, one example in Ghana is with the exit of USAID that affected a lot of maternal child HIV programs. They have increased their domestic resource mobilization efforts by increasing taxes on sugar in their country, and they've also made sure that, because they they mine a lot of gold. So people who do mining in Ghana are compelled to sell first to the government before they sell outside, so that they're able to, you know, keep some resources that can be used for essential services. So I think that's one example. But basically, the thing is that we shouldn't be surprised that something like that has happened, because people will prioritize themselves first. We cannot continue to depend on external funding to finance our own essential services.
Thank you. So like Dr. Kshala said now, we've always known that donor funding is not sustainable. We cannot rely on others to help to finance our health sector. We have to do it ourselves. We have to be serious with domestic resource mobilization for health. So we are not surprised, though it was shocking, but we shouldn't be surprised. So I would like Dr. Anthony to tell us what are those things, how is SFH supporting in ensuring that the country bounces back, we're able to finance our health. What are those things that SFH is doing in this regard?
Thank you so much. I think you can hear me. All right. So thank you, Dr. Kapaya. Again, in my opening remarks, I mentioned that Doc has said it here that we shouldn't have been surprised. I mean, over the years, somehow we knew that this was going to happen. There was a time when we had FCD pulled back, GIZ pulled back, and in fact, not to scare us or to be an agent of bad news, what's going on now is that, like they used to say, when America coughs, others catches cold, right? Many other donors and bilateral organizations are aligning. Global Fund is aligning, and with time, all of them will align, because, like Doc said, you have to, in the aeroplane, you have to put on your own mask before you help someone else. There's a global crunch, and people are now realizing if Trump can do this and get away with it and make so much money for internal, usage, then we can also toe that line. So it's going to get worse. So having said that, we shouldn't have been this reliant on external aid. I'll give you an example from the SFH experience. When FCO pulled back and we started seeing the trend, what we did was to diversify. Today, we formed 3 organizations, subsidiary organizations within SFH. Now, what did that do? We started looking inwards. And that's what we can extrapolate as a country. We need to look inwards. There are a lot of loose resources hanging around, but then are we channeling them properly? So we, like I said earlier, we provide technical assistance to government at all levels, at national level, at the sub-national level. Tax, we are not, tax is an important thing to do, but beyond taxing, mobilization, resource mobilization should be an art, but not an act, right? Each time you are responsive, it happens and you respond, it becomes an act. But what we need to do as a country is to be intentional and to be honest and to actually be, I would say, self-honesty, to tell ourselves the truth, and then be intentional about internal resource mobilization.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor, for that. So thank you. I am happy that you even gave us examples of how SFH was able to survive, was able to cope when a similar thing happened. So as a nation, it's something what we should be able to surmount this challenge. It's a challenge, but we have to face it head on. So nobody likes challenges. Nobody likes something that is not prepared for. But they say every opportunity, with every problem, with every challenge, there is an opportunity for innovation. There is an opportunity for you to think about something that you never thought about before. So what opportunities do you think this situation presents for Nigeria? What are the opportunities in this that can help us to build a resilient health system, to have a sustainable source of financing the health sector? So both of you will be giving me this. So it's not directed to only one question. So I'll start with Dr. Yeshola.
Thank you. I think Doc has started talking about it, about thinking and doing things differently. We can't, we have the intention, like we have to be intentional about how we design programs in a way that there is more emphasis on what we have available before we start to look for what outside support can do. Outside support should be complementary and not the mainstay or main source of how we fund programs. And a lot of times people think of innovation in terms of big things. We like big shiny objects. Innovations can be process innovations where you introduce efficiencies into how programs are designed and run, and you're not necessarily budgeting for big things that you don't have the money for. And we're really guilty of that kind of magical thinking. We budget for very expensive programs and start to look for the money to do them. We're very, what's the word, magical thinkers in this country. So I think just being intentional about design and using what we have